Hi, I'm Warwick from Harder & Steenbeck, and I'm really excited to present to you today our painting process video for the launch of our new Evolution airbrush. Now, we designed it with a specific kind of user in mind, somebody who's got a lot to paint, they want to get it done fast, but to a really high level. And so I'm going to ask Stephen Box from Vanguard Tactics to take over and actually do the painting in this video. The reason for that is, as I know that many of you are miniature painters, and many of you are players before you're painters. And this airbrush is really for you. It's to enable you to get your models onto the playing table in an absolutely fantastic presentation without too much investment of time, and critically, using a painting system that isn't too demanding of skill. So this airbrush system is designed to enable you to develop and grow, but all along the way, produce fantastic work. So I'm going to hand over to Stephen Box from Vanguard Tactics, and he's going to paint a whole unit of Space Marine Terminators, and I'll be back.
Hey, Stephen here from Vanguard Tactics, and I'm super excited to have the chance today to test out the brand new Evolution CRplus. The Evolution is an airbrush that I've used a lot in the past and has been basically my go-to airbrush for painting all of my miniatures for all the armies here at the studio, and I've painted a lot with the airbrush. So I'm super excited to see what I can do with this brand new airbrush. We've got some epic new features that I can't wait to test out, and to see how quickly I can paint these 5 Terminators. I'm going to be painting them today in the ultramarine color scheme, so a really nice, bright, vibrant blue, as they are the kind of poster boys. And I'm going to be taking you through the fastest way possible to get these guys ready to get onto the table. We're going to be using the airbrush for a lot of the work, and then we're going to go in with some other little extras with the paintbrush to really finish off these and make them pop to get them ready. So what I've done for the process in the beginning is just make sure that I'm ready to paint, okay? So I'm building the models in a way that is going to lend itself really easily for a fast, clean paint scheme. So I know that the bodies of the Space Marines need to be blue, and I want to have the heads white. So what I've done is I've put them separate just on some paper clips into a piece of cork, which means I can have full control of the white scheme on the heads, and then I can have complete control of the blue scheme on obviously the Terminators inside where the head would go. And I know that although I'm looking for speed, I can get really nice accuracy as well. And then I can just put those heads in at the very end. So one thing I would recommend is always make sure you're building in a way that's going to lend itself to the fastest paint scheme possible. So the paints I'm going to be using today are the Duncan Rhodes 2 thin coats. I've got Marine Blue, Celestial Blue, Elysium Blue. They're going to be the main 3. And I've got like a dark to a light. But first of all, the first step we need to do is, of course, get our models primed. So I'm just going to do a 50-50 or 1-to-1 mix of thinner to primer. Give the paints a good shake. So what we're looking for is to be about a fist distance apart. And yeah, with this primer, what we're looking to do is make sure we're getting into all the little recesses, all the gaps, and for that complete coverage. And a couple of thin coats of this is going to give myself an awesome, nice prime. But yeah, about a fist distance apart. So on to the next one. And what I have found is what a great smooth coverage, and the speed, but also control I've got is great. I love the feel of the new trigger. The slightly larger trigger as well is really, really comfortable, which I do appreciate a lot. So now I've got a really nice surface primer down. You should end up with a really good smooth coverage, just like this, and absolutely everywhere on the model should have a nice prime. And we've also primed all of the heads and underneath as well, so you've got a good full coverage. So the next stage is to now get the blue down. Now, really, really simply, what I'm going to do is start off with the first base color, and that is going to be Marine Blue. This can be the darkest blue that we're going to hit it with all over for complete coverage. And again, we're going to do that 1-to-1 thinner to paint. One thing I love now is being able to pinch the end and have all my paints mix themselves using the bubble back technique. And that's really nice to be able to see the needle, pinch, pull back, and now we're good to go. Again, a fist apart from the model, and I'm looking for all over coverage. And again, it's going to apply a couple of 2 thin coats to get the paint down looking smooth. So as you can see, we've got a nice coverage of that blue. That stage is probably the longest due to the fact that you do need a few thin coats to really get a nice smooth coverage of blue in all the recesses, gaps. So the next stage is going to be using that Elysium blue. And between those color stages, just put a little bit of cleaner through the airbrush just to make sure you've got a nice clear color. Now, one more thing as well is one feature I do love about the airbrush is this change in the trigger that does allow you to pull it right the way back further than ever before. And for me, that does mean you can clean the airbrush super fast. So next up, we're going to add a little bit of thinner and in with a few drops of paint. Now we're going to be going in with that Elysium blue, and we just want to be picking out the main areas of the armor. Okay, so we're not going to be hitting the recesses with this, but we want a good coverage, probably covering around 75% of the model with this color, and a nice thin coat, and probably around 3 to 4 fingers away from the miniature, and keeping a nice tighter control than we did when we're doing those layers. Hitting all the raised and highlighted areas with this. And we're kind of following the patterns of the armor. So if we see a cylinder, we're going to paint the front of that cylinder. If we see a ball shape, then we're going to do obviously majority of the top of the kind of round area. If we see any flat panels, then again, we want to be following the airbrush in those same lines. Avoiding the recesses. And again, a couple of thin coats to get a nice coverage and transition between the blues. And what I'm trying to replicate is where the light hits the model, I just want to paint that a little bit lighter. Now we finished up with that Elysium blue, or that mid-tone blue. We've got some really nice depth happening. And just, yeah, as you can see, underneath, much darker blue, and on the top, much lighter. And that's exactly kind of what we want to create. So you're replicating where that light hits the model. So just to summarize, you want to do a complete overall dark blue in 100% of the model, then roughly about 75% just on the kind of surface areas in that mid-tone. And now we're going to go in with the lightest color blue, and we're going to place that inside the areas that we've just painted, picking out some of the corners and where that light would really, really catch. And that's going to be the last step to make this blue look awesome. Okay, so I have got the color control. Basically, I've tightened it all the way up down about a quarter turn back, and it just allows you to get a nice quick way of controlling how much pressure comes out. And again, we're just looking to hit those highest recesses or the peaks of the model, whatever you kind of want to call it. And again, this is going to just really let the blue pop on those areas that we want it to. Again, staying out of the recesses because we just want to hit those highlighted areas. Where you can see the light catches, then just put a little bit of paint kind of in that area, following the shapes of the model. I'm working about 2 to 3 fingers away from the model at the moment for this control. Now we just need to do the rest of the models. So with the highlighted areas just finished off, now we've got great depth and tones within the color. And yeah, the model's now pretty much done in terms of the blue. Now it's time for the next stage, which will be time to add the transfers on the shoulder pad. This is a really awesome step. And then we're going to do a matte varnish, all with the airbrush. And once these transfers are on, these are going to really start to come to life. So the next stage is to add those transfers. Now this is a really simple process. What you need to do is either you just can do this straight from the pot using water, or what we've got is a product here called Micro Set and Micro Sol. We're just going to put a little bit of Micro Set over the area of the model so that we basically want to apply the transfer to, and it's going to be on those shoulder pads that we've just painted. The clean shoulder pad is what we're looking to add because we've already have the details on the model on the other side. And then what we're going to do is just apply the transfer really simply and easily. And what you need to do is get yourself a plate with some, a little bit of water in, cut off your shoulder pads that you need. These are going to be ultramarines, so we're just going to cut out the ultramarine transfers, and we're going to get those just in the water for a couple of minutes until the transfer starts to remove itself from the paper. And then it's going to be a simple process of just adding those on with either a brush, pair of tweezers, knife, whatever you kind of want really, and then to put them in the right position. So now what we're going to do is place that decal using a brush or pair of tweezers into the right position, and that micro set will just help the basically the paper on the decal start to dissolve and stick, and then we'll cover that with a nice matte varnish, and then it'll all look really, really smooth. So I'm going to do the rest. So with the transfers on, it's just started to add a little bit more detail, which is a super fast process as well. We're going to wait for those to dry, and then what we're also going to do is head over and use the Microsol to basically get rid of all of the kind of transfer paper, just leaving the actual painted or colourful elements. And then we're going to give it that matte varnish using the airbrush. So while we're doing that, while waiting for that to dry, we may as well start on the Space Marine heads. And we've already done that prime. The first stage is, because we want these to be white, is to give this a nice light grey all the way over. Although one of them is going to be red, we're still going to do the entire process all exactly the same because it does need a white stripe on it, and airbrushing white I find is much easier than trying to paint it on with a brush. So we're going to get a nice light grey. I've got Cargaragon grey here, but it could be any form of light grey that you've got access to, and this is just going to allow the white to show up a little bit easier, more vibrant than going straight onto the black. So we're going to use the grey all over, again being about a kind of fist distance apart, couple of light coats all over the black. And this is going to give us our shadow or base colour before we hit it with the layers of the white. And again, we're going to need a couple of thin coats to get all these looking great. Okay, so now we're going to go in with a sort of off-white colour or very light grey, and we just want to be hitting out the kind of tops areas of the helmets. Again, good coverage, and I've given the color control about sort of quarter twist from being all the way tight, and that allows me just to kind of pull the trigger back in a really controlled way. Picking out the raised areas with this off-white color. And again, another couple of thin coats just to build up the color. Going to go back in with another coat of that off-white, just a couple of fingers away from the actual part of the model that I'm airbrushing, and slowly building up that cover for a nice, thin, smooth finish. And I'm just hitting this from a top direction, just so that all the grey is still then in the recesses. If we were to kind of turn it around, you can see some good tone and difference. Now for the last final highlight with the white, we're going to work really closely here with our paints thinned down, but now with just a pure white. So I'm using white Scar here, and we're just looking to build up that colour just on the sort of cheeks and the really top raised areas, just to kind of give it one last kind of highlight and really allow the white to kind of pop on the cheeks and the top of the helmet. Working a couple of fingers away now and slight little strokes with the airbrush. Okay, so the Sergeant has a red helmet, but he has a white stripe right the way down the front. So what I've got is just cut off a little bit of masking tape here. And I'm going to position this on the model where I want to maintain that nice clean white that we've just done. And that's going to go all the way down the front in a stripe before we start applying the red. And what this is going to do is block the red from hitting the white that we've done. So we've got a nice clean white line. And this is perfect for using masking tape or a type of stencil with the airbrush. So now it's time to apply the red. I've got sanguine red and again, thinned it down to a kind of 2:1 ratio. And we're going to start applying the red all over the helmet. And that white and grey base is perfect just to allow the red to go on really smoothly and also give us a nice saturated colour as well. Couple of nice thin coats with that red just to really get that colour build up. So you're going to wait for the red to dry and then you're going to do the peel. And let's see if that's worked. Yes, nice. We've got a really awesome looking white stripe right the way down the helmet and that looks brilliant. Really happy with that. So the next stage is to give all the helmets and also the miniatures now a matte varnish. So we're going to put a little bit thinner in. We're going to get our matte varnish. Apply that again to that 50-50 ratio. Give that a good mix. And you want to make sure the airbrush is completely clear before you start applying this matte varnish. Otherwise, you might end up applying colour to a model that you don't want. So we're going to start off first of all with a nice light coverage. And again, kind of bring it all the way back, a bit like if we were doing a layer and about a fist distance apart. And this is going to allow the transfers now and all the armor to kind of blend in together and give a nice smooth finish across the entire model. And this is also the step you want to apply before you go in with any details where you start using metallics. So with the matte varnish down, the transfers have just kind of blended in to the armor and these are starting to look absolutely awesome. We got good definition, good contrast of the paint, looks brilliant. So now with all the airbrush work done, it's now time to go in with all of the details. So first of all, we're going to do is use black and then we're going to start to layer up all those other colors that we want. So for example, the first thing I need to do on the helmets is there is kind of like a rubber tubing underneath their helmet. So I'm going to paint all of that black and that's going to just be right in the shadows. So that just means when we add it back to the model itself, if anything is in the shadow, it'll be dark and black and you won't be able to see any kind of light specks. Also on the helmets, you have a front grille, so that can also be painted black. So now the black detail done on the heads, it's time to move over to the models. And what we're looking for is the kind of Under Armour elements, that needs to be painted black. The gun also needs to be painted black and any of the kind of piping as well. And then you could potentially look at doing things like buckles, belts, any of those different elements that you want to have as a bit of a contrasting colour. But for me, I'm just going to do the tubes, the gun, and also that Under Armour. So with all the black details done, as you can see, the gun barrels, the pipes and the inner tubes are all done and the model's really starting to come together now. Also, the helmets looking great. So the next stage is to finish off the helmets, and what we need to do is those red lenses on the eyes, and this is super easy. What we're going to do is we're going to get some red, we're going to water it down, and we're just going to use the outline that we've already got from essentially the airbrush and just very neatly paint in those lenses red. And then we need to pick a different color to paint the lenses on the red helmet. Well, we've got the red. What we're next going to do is all the wax seals, and this is going to be on the purity seals. So we need to find those, and then any of the lenses that we can see on the models, we'll put those in. And when you are doing that red, just push it into the recesses, and you should end up with a nice coverage. So with all the reds complete on the wax and also on all of the lenses, these guys are looking really, really good. And now the next stage on the miniature is to pick out all of the purity seals, and we're going to paint that in like a sort of dusty brown color, and then we're going to lighten it up to more like a lighter bone / white, and that's going to be done all the paper and all the parchment. So we're going to start off with Skeleton Legion from 2 thin coats, and we're going to apply that all over the parchments. Also the other details on the shoulder pad and also on the leg, we're going to do that in that same color as well, using exactly the same colors and technique. So we are going to need a couple of thin coats on this to build up a nice pigment and saturation before we then move on to the lighter colors to get rid of all of that underlying blue color. So that's the first coat of the Skeleton Legion down. Next up, we're going to use a bit of Vampire Fang or a slightly, add a little bit of white to whatever color you've used, whether it's a Xandri Dust or a bone color, add a bit of white and only go over the raised areas, leaving the recesses this darker color, and then you'll start to get some really nice highlights. So with all the bone colored down, it's given it a really nice finish. And I've just finished off with a slightly off-white mix with a little bit of that bone, and did a quick dry brush / ed highlight just to bring out some of those tops of the bone areas, and they're looking really, really good. So the last thing now is for the metallics, and we've got to do a bronze and we've got to do a silver, put the heads in, and then we are nearly finished with this epic looking Terminator. So for the next color we're going to use is Brassy Brass from Vallejo, and we're going to put that all over the Aquila. Now to highlight the brass, we're just going to go in with Glorious Gold, and we're going to do that just on the highlighted areas of all the Aquilas and the metallic gold areas that you've done. So with the brass and the gold colours done, and as I said earlier, I used Brassy Brass and Glorious Gold from Vallejo, but any would suffice. Just did that on the Aquila and all the other metallic areas on the gun. Now the last thing to do is just the silver on the gun, pop his head in, and we're nearly finished. So for the silver, we're going to use Chainmail Silver from Vallejo, slightly watered down, and yeah, just apply that to all the areas on the gun that you want to be metallic. So with the metallics now on, just brings a little bit extra details to the gun, and it's time now to stick the head in place, and then to base your model to match the rest of your army, but we're pretty much done. Now with the head super glued in, the model is finished and we are ready for the tabletop. Now this is way beyond a tabletop standard, and I think not only does the blue look absolutely fantastic, but some quick details and the transfers, along with that nice matte varnish, it's all come together. And I can safely say the new Evolution does exactly what it's meant to do. It paints fast, you're able to work really, really hard with it, and yeah, still maintain fantastic control. I would most certainly recommend. It is a beautiful airbrush. It's got a fantastic weight to it. It's really, really comfortable to hold. You've got the different sort of cup sizes you could use as well. If you would prefer, you can always go for those. And on the whole, a fantastic airbrush, fit for purpose. And that's exactly what we want. And also super easy to clean and maintain. So grab yours. And I hope you've really enjoyed this tutorial around how to paint these awesome Space Marine Terminators.